Okay, this is Unit 1, Lesson 1, on how to complete finite differences. Finite differences are used when you have a table of values and you're trying to figure out whether you have a relation that is a linear relation or a quadratic relation or neither. So to do finite differences is basically what you're doing is subtracting consecutive y values. So I'm going to show you how to do this by first completing your first difference. So to complete your first difference, the easiest way to do this is probably to do it right alongside the y values. For finite differences, we actually don't use the x values at all. We'll only be using our y values. So you want to subtract consecutive y values. Consecutive just means one right after the other. So in this case, we have -3 and -4. We're going to subtract them. You always subtract the second one from the first. So subtract the second number, which is -4, from the first one. Now in this case, we have -3. You have to be very careful here because we're always subtracting. We're finding the difference from the second number to the first. This, of course, will change our answer. When you have two negatives right beside each other, it becomes a positive. So -4, and this becomes a plus. I'll change that here. So this now becomes a plus. So -4 plus 3 is -1. Now we go on to the next two set of numbers, the next two consecutive numbers. Now we have -3 and -4. So my -3 subtract -4. Again, we have two negatives, so that becomes a positive. So -3 plus 4 is 1. And we go on to our next two numbers. Here we have 0, take away from -3. And again, we have two negatives. Two negatives make a positive. They make a positive. So that becomes +3. And our last two numbers, we're going to subtract 5 from 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. Now these are our first differences here, -1, 1, 3, and 5. And if you've noticed from the notes, if the first difference is a constant number, so all the numbers are the same, then that means it is linear, which is a straight line. We do not have all the same numbers, so you continue again and you go on to the second difference. Okay, so for your second difference, all you're doing now is the same thing, but instead you're using your first differences and subtracting those. So we subtract 1 minus, and then -1 again. That, of course, turns it into a positive. Right here, two negatives make a positive. So 1 plus 1 is 2. We go on to our next two consecutive numbers, which is 3 and 1. So 3 minus 1 is also equal to 2. And our last two consecutive numbers is 5 minus 3, and that is also 2. So our second differences gives us a constant number. Each of our second differences is a value of 2. When second differences is constant, so the second difference is constant, this means that our relation is quadratic. Therefore, it is quadratic. So, from first differences, if our first differences had been constant, it would have been linear. Second differences is quadratic, and if it isn't constant, then it is neither.